Hello everyone, this is Aiden. Welcome to another video. Today we are going to do a little comparison on the Chinese algae eater versus the Siamese algae eater. Now, as you can see, we have a Chinese algae eater, just a juvenile right here. This is it's pretty easy. Where's he going? It's pretty easy to tell the difference if they're like one of the gold algae eaters. But by the way, sorry if my voice sounds a bit off. I'm experiencing some pretty nasty allergies. But since this one is one of the basic, more common striped ones, they look pretty similar to the Siamese algae eater. Now, I'm gonna explain why you want to know the difference, and that is just in size, behavior, and just general aggression level is really different between these two fish. When they're juveniles, the Chinese algae eater, I don't know where he went, is pretty docile. Here's the Siamese algae eater. His name is Glubus. Um, Glubus is also a juvenile Siamese algae, or is a juvenile Siamese algae eater. And you can see that they do look different. If I could get them both in the same shot, that'd be nice. But you can see that going back to behavior-wise, Chinese algae eaters, when they grow up and they grow big, they can grow, 6 to as much as 6 inches all the way to a foot. So he's not going to be living in here permanently. He's probably going to give him away to the local fish store once he gets a little bigger. I just wanted to keep him temporarily. We'll see how big he actually gets. Where is he? Where's Gluber? That's the name of the algae eater, Chinese algae eater. I can't find him. So I guess we'll be looking at the Glubis here. But Chinese algae eaters, they grow, they grow pretty big. They also tend to stop eating as much algae once they grow up. They tend to prefer meaty foods. I'm going to show a corridor because corridor is right here. They tend to switch to more meaty foods as they grow older. So that's something, so they kind of do their, oh, here it is. They do their job a bit less. They also tend to get pretty aggressive. If you do not feed them enough protein, they will attack your other fish and suck on their slime coats. I shouldn't have too much of an issue with that because most of my fish, other than the cories, are pretty quick fish. So the cories might become a problem. If it does, I'll just rehome him early. But for now, he should be good. But yeah, so Siamese algae eaters, they only grow to about 5 to 6 inches long. I don't know what that is in centimeters, so for the people who use the system that makes sense, the metric system, I apologize. I am too lazy to translate right now, and I don't write scripts because this is a small YouTube channel and I don't really care. But, yeah, so they only grow 5 to 6 inches, and these guys, they eat algae their entire lives. Both species will eat like fish flakes and stuff like that. I got some zucchini down there that I've seen them nibbling on. But the Siamese algae eaters, they actually eat algae their entire lives. So that's something. I'm kind of scanning the tank looking for them. Again, this is a channel I do for fun when I'm bored. So I don't bother doing much editing or stuff like that. Maybe in the future I will. There is a Glubis over there. But they always eat algae their whole lives. They tackle certain types of algae, like hair algae and blackbeard algae, algae that most fish don't nibble on. So they're widely regarded as being really good algae eaters. They won't get the stuff on your glass, like this stuff they won't touch. The Chinese algae eater will. So they also tend to be a bit more active. They swim on all levels of the aquarium, just kind of nibbling. You can see him, if my camera would focus, you can see him nibbling on all the plants. He's nibbling on any biofilm or algae that's growing on the plants. So yeah, they tend to be a bit more active. In terms of space, I've heard a lot of different things about how much space Siamese algae eaters need. This is a 40-gallon. He should be able to live in here his entire life. That's what I've heard from people, is that 40 gallons is the minimum for a Siamese algae eater. But I've also heard people say that you want like 55 gallons or more for a Siamese algae eater. But if I notice he's looking really cramped, I will rehome him, but I think he should be good to live his entire life here. Chinese algae eaters, again, I've heard different opinions about them. I've heard they can be kept in as small aquariums as 30 gallons. I've heard they need at least 55 gallons. I'm probably not going to keep him in here. Even if he only grows to like 6 to 8 inches, I'm probably not going to keep him in here long term because I don't want him to attack my bottom dwelling fish, or my tiger barbs, or zebrafish, which is pretty unlikely because they're fast, semi-aggressive fish. So there's that. Definitely difference in behaviors. In terms of looks, they tend to look pretty similar. The golden ones obviously look different. This one is the standard striped one, and as you can see, they do look pretty similar. The best way to tell the difference is the mouth. Chinese algae eaters have a sucker mouth similar to a pleco, while Siamese algae eaters don't. They have kind of a normal fish mouth with little whiskers. You can barely see them. They have little whiskers at the end of their mouths. So that's, in my opinion, the easiest way to tell the difference is look at their mouths. Siamese algae eaters aren't going to be rasping on surfaces. They won't be stuck to the glass. Chinese algae eaters will. It was actually a pain getting Gloober, the Chinese algae eater, out of the bag because he was sucking on the plastic, so he wouldn't let go. But yeah, in my opinion, that's the easiest way to tell the difference is look at their mouths, because you're getting two very different fish, and one of those fish could backfire horribly. I know what I'm getting into, so I knew what I was buying when I bought a Chinese algae eater. And if you do know, that's fine. If you have a tank that's a large enough aquarium that's full of semi-aggressive fish, like tiger barbs or cichlids, you should be fine. They're great fish, in my opinion. I know that's controversial. I think they're really cool fish. Their behaviors are really fun to watch. They do a great job at scavenging at the bottom of the aquarium and around the aquarium. And you can see as a juvenile, he's nibbling away at algae all the time. I think they're really cool fish. Even the standard striped ones, I think they're pretty fish. The gold ones are really pretty, but PetSmart didn't have them. By the way, PetSmart sells these as small algae eaters, which is not true. The PetSmart I go to, they keep a one that's a bit bigger in a separate aquarium for just so that people can see how big they get, which I think is a good idea because they're sold as small algae eaters, which is just not true. They will say a small algae eater for a little bit, but before you know it, you're going to have a 6-inch beast that craves protein more than algae. And that 6-inch beast may grow up to 12 inches in length, which is, I mean, that's quite a bit. That's like 1/3 of a meter, I think, because a meter is like around 3 feet. So that's like 1/3 of a meter. That's pretty big, especially for people who may buy them for only like a 30 or like a 10-gallon aquarium just to clean up their algae. Like that's not good. It'll quickly outgrow that and risk getting stunted, which some people argue that stunting isn't harmful to fish. I don't know if it is. There's evidence that supports both that it is and isn't. So I'll leave that up to you. People in the comments might disagree with me and get angry and say the stunting is bad. Oh, you should be saying it's bad. I agree. I think it is bad because your fish is not reaching its full potential, but I think it depends on the severity of the stunting, because the world's oldest goldfish lived to 43, and he was severely stunted, and he wouldn't have lived that long if he was, super unhealthy. But that aside, that's a different topic. Trying to think if there's anything else I should mention about the move tiger barbs. Oh, here's a good picture, a good view of them together. Yeah, as you can see, they look pretty similar, but they also look different. You can see the differences in their mouths. So that's move tiger barbs. So that's something. Yeah, in terms of price, Siamese algae eaters, it really depends on where you go. I got my Siamese algae eater from a local fish store for $11.50, which isn't bad at all. My Chinese algae eater I got from PetSmart for like $2. Actually, I used treat points, so I got them 50 cents. My card didn't work, so I really got this guy for free, basically. But normally it'd cost like a little over $2, so it's definitely a cheap fish to buy. Which is kind of a problem because a lot of people don't know what they're getting into. But yeah, so they're two similar fish, but they're also very different fish. This isn't a very scientific video. This is just based off what I've experienced so far. Of course, and when they're both young, when they grow, when both of them grow, their behavior is going to change a little bit. But Siamese algae eaters tend to be more peaceful when they grow up, like I mentioned before. So yeah, this is kind of a longer video, and I apologize. I doubt anyone's going to watch it anyway, but that's okay. I don't mind. I just like talking about fish, and I like showing my fish off to the world. But yeah, so I've got to move that hornwort that's kind of in the way. But yeah, so they're both great fish, in my opinion. There are people who are diehard fans of Chinese algae eaters who say they're great fish, but you know, you gotta understand that they do get pretty aggressive when they get older. Some people haven't had that experience, so it really depends on, you know, what you're looking for in a fish, and to make sure you know what you're buying when you get a Chinese algae eater, because you know, like I said before, they grow pretty big and they get pretty mean. So, you know, just know what you're buying and understand that, you know, they don't stay algae eaters for very long. At least according to Primetime Aquatics, they do eat algae when they're adults. Most people disagree with that. I don't know. He's moved Tiger Barb. But yeah, so they're both great fish. It really just depends on what you want. Overall, I would recommend a Siamese algae eater if you want algae control. But if you want a cool bottom-dwelling fish that might fit in with a semi-aggressive aquarium, then Chinese algae eater would fit that deal pretty well. Just make sure you have fish that can hold their own against Chinese algae eater. And yeah, you should be good. So yeah, that was just a quick video. I'll try and set the thumbnail as the two together, because that would be great. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you later. Move, Tiger Barb. Bye.